This episode of the Wrong Advice podcast is powered by Harlowe, the only woman-owned lighting brand for photographers, videographers, filmmakers, and content creators. Designed for those who push creative boundaries, Harlowe lights are compact, powerful, and built to inspire. Harlowe creates tools that stand the test of time, crafted for those who see light as an art form. Harlowe believes that your light can be bold, powerful, and beautiful, and that it deserves to be seen. Visit Harlowe online at www.harlowe.com or follow them on Instagram at Harlowe Creators. Welcome back to the Wrong Advice podcast. I'm your host, John Picciuto, and I'm very excited to have the one and only Mr. Travis Keys with us today. Travis, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very psyched to be here.
My pleasure. I'm super excited to have you on the pod today. Can you give a quick introduction to the listeners to who you are?
Yeah, sure. I mean, geez, the quick introduction. I've had this, long storied route to get to where I am today. But short is I'm sort of a cinematic photographer, and I kind of just really discovered that over the last couple of years, even being a photographer 10 years. I do a lot of brand ambassador stuff, huge event stuff, and advocacy for APA, and I'm national president of American Photographic Artists, so I wear a couple different hats and ambassador for a couple companies, and yeah, I love photography and a filmmaker too, and I just produced my first feature film, so there's a lot of hats going on.
Whoa, yeah. That's exciting,
right? Yeah.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Cinematic photographer. When did your love affair with photography start?
It's the type of thing is even when I was really young, I didn't know I was loving photography. I always kind of picked up a 110 camera and would, it was like visit the grandparents in Texas, and they'd, you'd go take the camera and drop it off at the pharmacy, and then 3 days later you get it back and go through all the pictures, and there was maybe one or two that were good, and there was always this kind of driving me to capture things and kind of store what I saw, and I love that. And I kind of lost that. I fell in love with film and cinema and did a lot of different. I kissed a lot of frogs in my life, and until I found photography that was my happily ever after, and it's kind of saved my soul, which is a big story. But it was I had two different careers prior to photography.
Which were what?
I started in film and TV, working on film production. Then I owned nightclubs and bars in New York and Miami and Connecticut, and did that for a while, and I just was empty inside, just depressed, and walked away from everything, and suddenly started picking up a camera every day, and oh, how do you shoot this? How do you shoot that? And people were like, oh, can you shoot this? Of course I can. And then studied oh my God, looking on the internet, how do I light this? How do that? And I went back to school at ICP, International Center of Photography, did their GS for 1 year, and never looked back. That was about 12 years ago now, and that changed my life.
Wow. So what was it in that moment when you were running bars and restaurants and that sort of thing, and you got struck by the fact that this isn't it? What was that moment like? And sort of talk me through the process of how you re-fell in love with photography.
I literally got to a point where I was having kind of panic attacks going into the bars, and I would sit outside of my car, wait until the last minute. I was so unhappy with my life, and it was constant work, and it's there was no free time. It's if I was heading off to something, suddenly the manager didn't make it in, the walk-in went down. It's there was 5 million reasons I just was not happy, and it wasn't fulfilling creatively, and I kind of fell into it, and opened up a bar when I was very young, and it suddenly just went to one to the next, and to bars and restaurants, and I found myself really kind of lost. I was someone that kind of grew up loving film and cinema and never finding my right group. As I was always I wanted to be with that group, every group, and never had a group. Yeah. And it wasn't until I, fell in love and escaped in movies and cinema. I used to plan it okay, it's 12 o'clock, I can sneak into this theater, go into that theater, catch 2 or 3 movies a day. Yeah. And that was my passion. Yeah. I fell in love with TV and stories, and years later, once I kind of decided I hate. I had one day with my bar and restaurant where I'm I have to quit. I kind of went in with a partner, and it was a terrible choice. And I was I either walk away and lose everything, or I stay and be miserable. And luckily I went and sat down with my parents and my stepfather and my mom, and I said, hey, and I just started crying. They're like, what's wrong? I'm all the emotions came out at once, and they're like, fuck it, walk away. We'll help you if you need it, and stuff like that. And it allowed me to kind of just say, all right, I'm going to sit here, and I don't have to jump back into something, because it was safe, or because it was a job, or because it was money, I could take a moment. And I started picking up a camera every day. And I just started walking and taking hikes. And I fell in love with the camera. I fell in love with telling stories. And people started asking me like, oh, can you shoot this? And that's when I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Well, and I told you I was working on a computer and stuff like that. I'm like, I really love this. I want to kind of take a chance and go back to school and study at ICP. And it was tough, because that was my third reboot in career. Going back into ICP was a lot of people like, they were, we're there was like, oh, I love this, or it was a flight of fancy or something. For me, it was like, there's no point, there's no plan B. It's like, I'm going to do this, and I'm not. And I remember one teacher saying, oh, your stuff is it's very precise. Everything's perfectly done. It's like very Bertinsky. I'm like, ooh, I like Bertinsky. That's great. She's like, no, he's socially irresponsible. He doesn't take, he does these beautiful pictures and takes social. I'm like, what the? He's like, it's like, what if I want to be?
Yeah.
It's like suddenly it's like they were praising. I'm like, people would show pictures that were out of focus, and I know it didn't mean them to be out of focus, but they loved them.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh my God, wait a minute. And there was one day I kind of lost it. I went in and I shot this picture. I had access to the backtrack of Saratoga racetrack.
Oh, sweet.
And I took this early in the morning. It's a horse rearing up, and there's 3 geese flying up in the fog. I mean, it's just a beautiful shot. And the sun is coming up, and the pictures. And we spent half an hour talking about the unethical treatment of racehorses instead of my picture. And I'm like, this is. So it wasn't until years after I left ICP where suddenly all the teachers and students were seeing that I was being successful and asking for jobs, and I went, all right, I did the right thing.
There is that subjective nature of photography that is inherently like a barrier for people, which is tough, especially if you're in a position to teach. I don't know if there is criticism and ways to verbalize how to grow.
Yeah.
Maybe not having to tear someone down for,
I don't think they teach enough of it's sort of like people instantly in those situations go, I wouldn't have done it like that. Well, it's not your photo. It's like, how do I grow as an artist, and how do we build our community? How do we talk about photos in ways that allow us to grow? And, for me, that was a very important thing. It's like, photography for me now is everything. It's like, when I get around a bunch of photographers, and whether it's, with Adobe or through Sony at Kando, or, these great things, I feel like that's my space camp. I found my people, I found my place, and we get to share. And I love that share, because one of the things I talk when I'm teaching or giving lectures and stuff like that is like, I will give you my recipe, but I know you get to add cinnamon or nutmeg, and it becomes yours. And don't get scared of sharing, because we're a group and we should support each other.
Yeah. Did you find early on, and I don't know how long Instagram has been around, but I've only been doing photography for 4 years now. I found the barrier to entry is obviously super high, let alone the cost, but just the social sharing of it all always felt very intimidating, and how do I, a person who is just deciding today to be a photographer, to share my work? Did you find early on any nervousness or any inability to be vocal or open in sharing what you were creating?
I still do. I think no matter where you get, and I talk to people that have great followings and great stuff. We all kind of walk into the room, and we all at some point feel imposter syndrome, and we all have that, and we all look up to other people like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. When I first started going to some of the Sony events, there was a point where I got to meet one of my idols. When I was very young, before I loved photography and before I even know what it was all about, my father loved one picture, and it was done by Neil Leifer, and it was Muhammad Ali knocking out. And it was that classic, it's one of the most famous photos ever. I always wanted to get that picture from my dad. He loved that, and so I fell in love with that picture, and it was amazing. Years later, my dad had passed away, and Sony, Kayla, the head of Sony Artisans, called me up and she's like, Neil's working on a book for Tosh, and he's going to a racetrack, shooting racehorses and stuff like that. Do you want to go with him? And I'm like, hey, yeah, but you don't understand. I told her the story of my father. She's like, you're going to make me cry. I'm like, no, you're going to make me cry. So I got to work with someone that I love so much, and it's like, I always feel like I'm in these rooms sometimes with people I don't deserve to be here.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm always pushing my group, and I found it, pushing, I see art and beauty, and I wish I could create that. I think we always look at the people that are above us and doing better than us and go, wish I could be there. And we don't take a moment to really look at ourselves and go, wait, I am creating stuff. I am doing stuff. And we have to have that moment. And as I get older, I think where I'm getting better and connecting with people is when we were young, we always put on these masks, everything's great, social media, I want to show you what amazing party's at, I want to show you all this stuff. But it's not until we actually realize, hey man, I'm feeling I got a pimple today, I'm not feeling overweight, I'm feeling this kind of stuff, and really connecting people and take those masks off, that we're allowed to do better work and connect with stuff, but we're allowed to connect with people and people connect with us. And we stop worrying about, I need to connect with everybody. I just need to connect with my people, or the people that follow me. And when you talk about social media, when I first started, Instagram was kind of new and all this kind of stuff, and there was algorithms and stuff. I don't think everyone talks about beating the algorithms. I don't think there's one out there, and you have to get to a point where you have to stop worrying about this.
Oh, totally.
And I am someone that firmly believes that you need to understand social media and use it, because we are a brand where I don't call myself a photographer really anymore. I mean, I sort of do if someone asks me what I do, it's photography, but now I'm sort of going, there was that bad word influencer, but now it's content creator and creators and stuff like that. And I think if we're going to excel in this, we have to understand how to connect with people and tell stories. And ultimately what we do is tell stories.
Yeah.
So if I show my picture on Instagram, I also create a reel of how I created it, talking about me, so I think it's very important to use the mediums and what we have at our disposal. Like you're doing a podcast right now. It's like one of the things I think is so beautiful is you look at all this stuff out there. Someone's either selling a brand or endorsing something, and it's always talking about themselves or selling something. Where those conversations you want to hear are the fly on the wall one, where two people are just sitting here and go, "Man, I felt terrible today. I didn't get this contract. I didn't get this." These are the conversations we need to have that connect with people.
I think that's such a beautifully important thing because, and again, the number one common theme of my podcast is like, could 25-year-old John have learned like 35-year-old John's lessons? And fundamentally, to my core, I believe the answer is no. It takes the time. It takes the lessons. It takes the negative experiences, the failures for you to become a real person.
Yeah.
And what's nice is that the position that I'm in now at my very advanced age of 39 is that I'm like accustomed to failing and I'm accustomed to losing, and I'm extremely vocal and honest and open about it, because at the end of the day, normalizing loss and failure is what's going to help other people understand that, like, yeah, the first time I picked up a camera, I'm not shooting the cover of Vogue. That's crazy, right? The first time I did a podcast, I didn't get 1,000 downloads. No, yeah, right. Yes. The issue's out next month. But yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like, because of the other side of the social media aspect of it, it's so much focus on metrics and measurements. That idea of community building, that idea of building your troop and finding your space camp buddies gets lost behind
Comic-Con, man.
Right. Yeah.
My geek out.
I relate to that tremendously because there's so much anti that. But like as you get older, you realize the important things, and that's like mental health, family, friends, like being able to be like just present and content has changed my outlook tremendously on life, not only just the art that I'm trying to make. Do you think, like 25-year-old Travis could have learned the lessons that you've learned since diving into this, or do you think ultimately it's a time thing?
I'm going to go back to one thing you said during that, which I found very for me, it's, I think a lot of times we know things, but we need to remind ourselves always. And you talked about failure. I think the younger me and the lessons we weren't supposed to fail, and the stigma of failing was bad, where now I've learned, no, failing is actually what makes you grow. It is the process. It is, that you're going to learn so much through failure. You're not going to learn through success. Failure is good. I mean, it's like, don't be upset because you failed. You tried, and that's the most important thing. So for me, like the 25-year-old me, no, God, no, man. I'm still working on me at this age, and I'm still every day trying to make me better as a person, me better as an artist, me trying to, not ever be closed off. It's like, I think we start out and everything comes so quickly. It's like, oh my God, I learned so much today. I did so much. Like it's just, it swarms you. But as you get better and more refined in your art, those big, like monumental achievements become less and less and smaller nuggets. But those smaller nuggets of knowledge become so much more important. And those are the ones that set you apart, just allowing you to learn, allowing you to progress, allowing you to get those smaller nuggets, or what you let, as later dates really kind of elevate your career, your mind, your craft.
It's like sort of like an openness to learning. So much of youth is like spent like, oh, I know this. My dad probably every time when I was a kid, fucking dad, I know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I don't need you to fucking tell me. It's like, why was I, what is the expression? Youth is wasted on the young or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, of course, the hubris of youth, like you think you have it all figured out. I think the greatest lesson that I've learned as I've gotten older is that I don't know anything. Like, I'm figuring it out. This is my first go round, just like it's my parents' first round. It's like giving people the grace to like make mistakes and learn and live and and thrive. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't have those failures to like look back on and say like, hey, what did I do wrong here and how do I learn from this? It's like you don't grow. The things that you learn from winning is severely less than you learn from losing. I fundamentally believe.
I totally agree with you.
When you started your career, obviously it was more about like, you know, finding something that you love, utilizing it to like better your life. It was like probably a lot of like, you know, trial and error, right?
God, yeah.
You like go through ups and downs, ebbs and flows. You've obviously reached a point in your career now where you're stable, you're making great work, you're like happy, you're fulfilled. This like UGC stuff that you're doing, all these like little things that you've like built into your career. Obviously, it wasn't just a very streamlined process over a 12-year period, but talk to me about some of like the successes and failures you have over time, and like what was like one particular moment where you were like, holy shit, like this is working, and like this is like, you know, I'm doing the thing that I want to do.
You know, it's that the journey is real, you know, and we have to go through that journey. And I remember in the early days when I was really kind of connecting with Sony and stuff like that, I was looking around the room at the people that I thought like, wow, they're successful. They're on YouTube, they're doing this, they're talking, they're at all these events, they're doing stuff like, how do you get to be that person? And I think we always want to be that person without realizing what it takes. And there was someone early on, Miguel Quiles, who's a friend who was a big Sony artist, and that I kind of looked at and watched, and I saw he was always working, just nonstop working, creating content. Like, and I looked at, it's like, there's a certain sacrifice you have to have. You know, I was dating a girl at that time that had kids, and it was like, on the weekends it'd be like, well, do I take this job or do I, say I haven't been, around them and I need to do that? And I don't think it was selfish, but I came to the conclusion that I needed to be 100% in on photography and growing my career if I wanted to be successful. And I made the sacrifice, and I worked hard, and I really kind of jumped into it full, and there was no looking back, and it was like, this is what I was going to do. There was no plan B, as I said. And I think if we always have a plan B, we're like, oh, I have a way out. And it gives us an excuse not to go in and say, all right, if I don't do this, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent, I'm not going to be able to do so. There was no plan B. So I was sitting there, and I just started working. I just worked on my craft, working on networking, and people kind of realized, well, I put up a great website and I have great photos. Why aren't people coming? It's like, I realized, no, you have to go out there and connect. You have to talk. You always have to be there. And I think one of the main things that was kind of cool for me, kind of that full circle, is when I went back to ICP and made that commitment to be there for a year and study. The commencement speaker was no other than, why am I blanking on the name now? Rolling Stone. Amazing. She's fantastic.
Haley Woods?
Yes, thank you. Why edit that, man? I should know that on the top of my head. No, this is a real life moment.
Yeah.
Right, but Annie Leibovitz was our speaker at commencement for ICP. And I remember going up to him, like, can I get a picture of this? She goes, no, I got it. And she literally grabbed my camera and took the picture. I'm like, I have a Leibovitz original photo.
Yeah.
10 years later, I do a talk, and I'm at I think I was chairman of American Photographic's New York chapter at that time.
Awesome.
I hadn't raised to a national chapter president yet, but we did a talk with Annie Leibovitz and it was in a big theater. It had hundreds of people, and I went up and introduced her and talked to her. I'm like, last time we met, you took the camera and took a picture. This time, 10 years ago, full circle, I'm going to do it. And we turned around with the crowd behind us, and I took that picture. So it was this kind of full circle moment of, just realizing how much I had progressed, and all the things, like, if you had told me I would be working with Sony and Adobe and Harlowe lights and AMD and have all those things, especially early on when I don't think I would have been a photographer at a certain point if it wasn't for Sony's EVF and their mirrorless cameras, and for Adobe because Control Z. Because if I went into a dark room and every time I'm like, all right, wait, in here, 5 seconds, damn it, chemicals, I just couldn't do it. Control Z was like my way to instantly kind of get there. And
for those who don't know, that means undo.
Yes, it's a total undo. I should have a shirt just Control Z.
That's a great idea. I like that.
That's my new company, Control Z.
I love that. I think that's great. Control Z Productions.
Right? So for me, it was like, that I got to work with Sony, that I am now going out and talking and on the Adobe stage at the for all these events and stuff like that I've come full circle. Like, wow, it's like if you put in the work and you love this stuff and it's not about I want to be with Sony because they're a great brand and I'm brand ambassador. No, it's because I literally would not be a photographer if it wasn't for those products. So that was sort of the awakening for me, is to come to this realization. Like, now I walk around at some of these events and and people come up going, Travis, oh my God, and he's like, can I talk to you? Can I take a picture with you? Like, it's like somehow I connected with people, and it's not that I want to be famous. It's like I love people. I want to connect. I want to walk around. I want to hear your story, and I want to hear about, it's like, and I think a lot of times we forget everybody's got a great story. And we're so wrapped up in our lives that we don't look at the light in people, and especially nowadays, which drives me crazy, we can have 100 things right now that we have in common, but somehow we've been programmed lately that we're looking for that one thing that is the difference, that drives us tribal, that drives us apart. And I'm not supposed to like you anymore because you this and this. And that just kills me.
Yeah, I mean, that is the double-edged sword of what social media does. In some degrees, it puts you in a silo and keeps you segregated and separate from everyone else. Whereas initially, the conception of it all was to bring people together. Now it's siloing people off. I think what you just said was super crucial and beautiful, because there is a path and a pattern to life, that there is like this ebb and flow, right? Like you've got good years and bad years, and good months and bad months, good days and bad days. And I think a lot of times it's hard when you're in the middle of the journey to see the forest through the trees. I find that personally right now, like my relationship with gear, my relationship with my art, my relationship with my photography is strained, right? Like I'm finding a hard time connecting with the work and the subjects and the things that I'm creating. When you're in that type of position where things aren't clicking, you're trying to control Z everything, what do you do to try to work through those blocks, those creative blocks, and those like things that inhibit your abilities?
God, man, I've asked this question to so many people that I interview that suddenly I'm like, oh, I have to have the answer, and I should have thought it out more and more, But I have to say, like when I get like frozen and I'm like, I can't see the next project, or I'm like, I tend to go back to old stuff that I've shot and re-edit, because I love the fact that my new skills will transform anything I did in the past. And I've made old projects become new again just by looking at them and going, oh my God, I would have done this so differently. I would have edited it differently. I might, it's like, there was one project I did when I was first started out in photography. I was too scared to shoot people. And it's like the chimping is like, you never like, oh, let me look, the confidence thing. So I went and shot, as a lot of us do, abandoned places.
Oh, sweet.
So I have these incredible archive of places that are just incredible. And I shot them like portraits. And then I was dealing with, family members getting older and death and declining, states and things that are forgotten. And it was like my photography. So that part of my life had been forgotten. That abandoned stuff, I had separated. I didn't want to be known for that anymore. And I brought it back, and it was sort of rebirth and stuff like that. So I took these old pictures and I started inserting like butterflies and stuff like that. So there was the old and rebirth and regeneration of, genesis of new life and beauty. And that became a project that was really beautiful that I'm still working on. And now I'm printing these and adding like real butterflies to it and stuff like that. So I think, it's like there's a lot of times we get stuck and it's okay to get burnt out. It's okay to have moments, but go and get re-inspired. I love movies. I will go into movies. I will go travel. I think there's nothing better than watching documentaries to get you inspired, because I'm one of those people that I never watch a documentary and then I watch one. I'm like, why aren't I watching these every day?
I know.
And I think we get to this point where it's like, it's okay to take steps back and then jump back in, but always push yourself. It's like, I think we need to recharge, but we also need to say, all right, the days where you really can't stuff, those are sometimes the most important days to push yourself to create something.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like the right answer is not the same for you that is for me, which is fine. Yeah. And you just kind of have to figure out what works for you. I do like the idea of documentaries. I like digesting content from other photographers and seeing other people's processes, because a lot of times, see, it's funny, like back in the day, like I had no concept for like falling in love with the art form, right? So like other people's work wasn't inspiring to me. Other people's creations weren't something that I was seeking out. And now I digest everything like a madman, like every documentary, every YouTube channel, everything, because it's just like we all have this shared amazing, like wonderful thing of photography.
Yeah.
It truly saved my life in a time when the world was falling apart during pandemic and everything. And I want to share that with everyone that I meet. And listen, someone else might not love photography the way I have. We may not have the same favorite artists or photographers or anything like that. But at the end of the day, these are things that like work for me to help me work through creative blocks. And it's nice that, different strokes for different folks. Like things change for people. But yeah, it's nice to hear that like similarity. Yeah.
Have you ever met someone that says, oh no, I hate photos? Like fundamentally, like I don't want to look at a photo. I can understand not wanting being in a photo sometimes, but then that people are like, oh no, I hate photos.
It's I don't know if it's like hey, it's more like that they don't get my obsession, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's like maybe not like I would imagine there's not many people who are like
I don't get the obsession with Taylor Swift, but I respect her.
Oh, I do. I love her. Yeah, she's great.
I respect. She's
Shake
brilliant.
it off.
Yeah, she's brilliant and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, listen.
People don't understand my reception of Radiohead. You know
what? That's fair too. I like Radiohead, but yeah. So my thing is like it came to me in a point in my life where it was exactly what I needed, and in a lot of ways, life does that to people. So yeah, I don't know that I've ever met someone who's like anti it, but it's like when you look at trends, and I'm sure as like a content creator, you understand like people typically don't digest that stuff as much as they used to. It's changed.
Well, also, you're overwhelmed by it. There's so much every day. It's like, how do you stay up with it? Everybody is so quick to the attention span on a photo is like quick, like boom, 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 boom. Like that is it.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why I've had this sort of dilemma that I've been going through in terms of what I want to create, because in a very digestible place where stuff doesn't get the attention that it deserves and it doesn't get to live and breathe the way it does, what I create is more important to me. And it was like almost a year ago now I stopped making Instagram reels, and I understand that in terms of like growth and growing my base and all that stuff, it's important. But like at the end of the day, like I didn't start taking pictures to make a video of me making a photo, right? And it's one of the reasons why I'm moving less and less away from digital photography and more into film, because I like. It's a little morbid, but the idea that like when I die, there'll be a physical reminder that I existed, that I created work. When my Adobe cloud stops getting the $30 a month, like that shit's gone. It's gone. Yeah. So it's like these are things that like I struggle with right now. Yeah. As a person who creates content, and it's like I'm assuming one of the main ways in which you earn a living. Do you struggle with like on the daily basis creating stuff, or do you just like know it's like part of the job?
No, it's. You bring up a really good point, and I look at it many different ways. I think social media is the one most. It's probably the most terrible thing that's out there right now.
Yeah,
it's terrible, but I make my living off of it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I try and discover ways where now. Not to get political. The most recent election, I was kind of sat there in bed and went, "Wow, we are so divided, and I don't know where to go from here." And I was traumatized by it, and I sat there, and like the reason to get out of bed was, how do I tell stories and connect people and make people realize we're the same?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's like we all fundamentally at the end of the day want to have a beer together. We want to protect our families, love who we love. It's like we all fundamentally want the same thing. So why are we fighting so hard against each other? So I am using social media to try and connect empathetically, tell real stories, not put on fake faces.
I like that.
And there was one picture. I do a lot of self-portraits and stuff like that. I took a self-portrait where it shows me taking off the mask, and in this hand I'm holding my face that's really smiling, and the other face is kind of just like almost that Greek tragedy of comedy and tragedy together in one shot. And that's what I'm trying to take off the mask and really connect with people and tell stories, and just like you are, like here, just connecting and talking to someone and trying not to say, hey, oh my God, you love Adobe? I love Adobe. For this, it's like what made you fall in love with cinema? What makes you cry at night? What makes you like? I sit there and watch American Idol now, and like as I'm getting older, when you come that one person, my dad died, my brother did this, and so I have found song, and they thought.
Dude,
I'm sitting there crying,
Dude, golden buzzers on America's Got Talent. Oh man!
I'm like,
if I ever need a good cry, I go to YouTube, America's Got Talent, golden buzzers. I'm like, fuck, puddle,
exactly,
complete puddle.
And I think at the end of the day, like, why do we? It's like you look at civilization, art, music, culture has always brought us together. It's like we need to adopt that. And it's like when you start trying to kill that, it's like. Well, who are we as a civilization?
Yeah, I think that's very important. I do want to just, in that vein, photography and art being subjective, right? Yeah. And understanding that, someone's going to look at something that I created and love it. Someone's going to look at it and be like, this sucks. How do you handle that, like, positive and negative feedback to stuff, especially when it is your job?
Yeah. I think, you have to realize there are billions of people out there. I'm not going to try and like when I was worried about everybody liking it or the one person that didn't, it's like well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You have to get started. If everyone comes back, oh, this sucks. Maybe you should take a look at it.
Yeah.
But, like find your crowd, find your group, find your community, and if you just had 0.5% of the population out there, you are bigger than most people have ever been in their life. So stop worrying so much and just continue to own what you create. Unapologetically go out and create it. And learn every day. It's like, I think that we have, as artists, and the hardest thing about this is most of us, especially in this field, became artists because we're empaths, we're empathetic, we feel we are able to put shoes on and see the pain in other people, and we take that on plus our own pain. So when we go do something that is so personal and someone swipes left or just hits a heart and doesn't say why they like it, it hurts because we've spent our lives and money to create this, and that it's just, so flippantly thrown aside. It's a painful thing. But we have to realize we're not really creating it for the likes and stuff like that. We're creating it because we have no other choice. We wake up in the morning, we have to tell these stories. And even if there was no one out there, I think I would still tell these stories and want to create them. So that's more important than connecting. But at the same time, I want to get fed.
Yeah.
So I have to play that chess game and understand, all right, I'm going to reveal myself and try and be honest about who I am and why, I create what I create. And hopefully that connects with people and open up my life and stories in a way that hopefully, it connects.
I think that's really, really beautiful. I'm curious. So like for a lot of my adult working life, there was very tangible ways in which I measured success, right? 99.9% of that was tied to financial compensation. And the thing that I've struggled with most in developing a creative life is how I view and measure what I consider success, because, and it changes constantly, right? Yeah. Because the idea that the monetary aspect of it is always going to be crucial because, I got to pay rent and that's understandable. But the other flip side of it is how do I view success creatively has become very important to me as I'm getting older. I'm going to turn 40 this year. So it's all these things play into and factor into how I deem myself. You've got great brand partnerships. You're working with some of the biggest companies on earth. When you look at where you are today versus when you started 12 years ago, obviously there's not anybody that would disagree that you've become a success. On an ongoing basis, how do you measure success in your career?
That's a good question. I mean, each year it kind of changes for me. And granted, I won't take certain jobs. I think we need to know the cost of doing business and stuff like that and saying, all right, $100, gig for 3 hours is just not going to pay my bills and driving and parking and stuff like that. We have to understand our cost of doing business, but also what it takes out of us. I mean, when I go out and shoot, whether it's, an ad campaign or something for social media or for a big event, that taxes me. It is emotionally draining. It's I consider myself probably an introvert with an extrovert in there.
Yeah.
And I have these two batteries. And when I go out and shoot, the energy is not just being able to see and capture at the moment, but it's also interacting. I'm sure you've been out there and people are oh my God, you're the best photographer. It was such a joy working with you. It's they haven't seen a picture yet.
Yeah.
I've provided an experience and it's almost like an actor. It's that curtain goes up. We learn our lines. We study our craft. The lights go on. The stage goes on. We go and perform, and it's draining. Mm-hmm. It just pulls it out of you from every end. And then we have to go back and edit it, and we have to do all this other stuff and pay the bills and stuff like that. So I think people think, oh, you just go and take pictures. It is really tough to measure success when you just are kind of lumped into that. But at the same time, I feel so grateful that these companies that once I looked up to, which I still do, that invite me to speak for them and do stuff like it. I'm on top of the world, man. And where does it go from there? Hopefully, more places and more travel and more shooting and bigger budgets to capture stories and stuff like that. But at the same time, if I can make a living and be happy and go out and continue to tell stories and shoot and talk, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been one of the real surprising developments of getting older and building out this creative life is the financial end of things becomes less. I think when you understand that I don't need the newest pair of sneakers and I don't need to drive the newest car and all these things that used to be very drivable for me.
Yeah.
Like getting that realization that I would rather just be happy, and happy being so very subjective, is important. Like I think, you know, there were times in my career where I would wake up, go to work, and I would never, it was like autopilot. Like I wasn't happy, I wasn't mad, I wasn't sad, but I wasn't like present either.
Yeah.
I was very much like, cool, so it's payday on the 15th and the 30th. Like, what am I going to buy, or what am I going to do that's going to mitigate what I'm feeling? And then when that's taken away from you, like it was for me during the pandemic, I was like, presented with a real opportunity to make a decision on like, what the fuck do I want this life to be? And in a lot of ways, going back to what we discussed earlier, loss and failure gives you those opportunities with the help of my family, your family, people around you, to reassess and make a very clear indication of like what I want this life to be. You mentioned something about the experience of like being on set with your social battery and stuff. That struck home to me because like I do think about that a lot. Like, you know, it's easy to wake up and be having a bad day, and then having to like put it on when you come to set is hard sometimes. When you're like drained just mentally, and like going into like one of these conferences where you have to give a talk, or a shoot where you have to like direct people and like create something, how do you like mitigate those like, you know, sluggish feelings, those like the slow bad days? Like how do you mitigate some of that stuff?
You bring up, yeah, that's a good one. And I have a couple things on that. One, we have to remember what we do and why we love it. I was giving a talk downtown, and it was supposed to be about why we should always have an iPhone and how it's important to capture social media, excuse me, BTS and all this. And I went to see the John Baptiste documentary with Kayla from Sony, and I'm like, oh, you just changed my talk for tomorrow. Like, my talk is going to be totally different. So I went to a music store and I bought a bunch of shaker eggs. I bought a bunch of tiki little things to hit. And I got this video, and I walked in there, and everybody rushed in at 6 o'clock after their work and stuff like that, sat down, and they were ready to hear about me talking about iPhone and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, who here like is totally uninhibited and can just like, you know, just loves doing things? A couple hands went up. I handed them the shaker egg. Who here like is really bashful and like doesn't really kind of want to jump in? A bunch of hands went up. I gave them more shaker eggs. And then like, who here is totally like embarrassed, would never want to stand up? A couple of hands went up. Like, I gave them like the bells and stuff like that. And then I put on this video. I'm like, I just want you to close your eyes, open them whenever you want, do whatever you feel. But it was this marching band, it's like brass and all this stuff that plays techno music. And in the video, they're out there in the park, and everybody just starts dancing, and the vibe was unbelievable. And you saw the audience just start shaking. And before you knew it, everybody is standing, even the people that are shy, that they're dancing, they're doing, boom, they're dancing and doing all this great stuff. And after that, you know, the vibe was incredible. The room sat down, everybody feels electric. I'm like, remember, 10 minutes ago, you walked in off the street. You were probably rushing around, angry at a taxi driver. It's like you just went in here and shedded everything that you had and fell in love in a moment. And that's what we need to do as photographers, is suddenly realize we need to dance and we need to love what we do, and we need to come in and shed all that stuff. Because as a brand, and not branding, which are two separate things, as a brand, everything we do, if I show up your photography, you know, to your event or your set or anything like that, and I'm having an off day, that travels constantly. So I have to, no matter even I'm having a bad day, answer the phone well, make sure I reply to the emails well. You know, everything that lives beyond me is so important that I must realize I'm not allowed to have those days. You know, and even when I do, I have to apologize and say, when we will all make mistakes, but it's how we make up for them when we do and how we deal with them. So I'm always conscious of that.
I think that's super beautiful. Where was the moment where you realized that? There had to be like a specific opportunity, a specific moment where you're like, my mood, my feelings, my whatever are directly impacting this. Because like I know from my own experience, there have been times where I'm on set where it's like you could see it in the photos. Like there's no happiness, there's no joy, there's no anything. And then that experience made me sort of develop that mindset that you have. Do you have a specific?
I think I realized it in the opposite way, where I would see photographers at different events and different things, and they look miserable.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you are so lucky to be here and getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
And I need to appreciate this and not forget. And for me, it was like, as I said, I kissed a lot of frogs. It took me a long time to find one thing like I love. And they say like, oh, when you finally love, you never work a day in your life. I'm like, not true.
Not true. Not true.
You work twice as hard,
yeah,
but you love it.
Yeah.
And even when I'm like, planning, I'm shooting, I'm luckily like I'm I'm going out to shoot in Rome in September.
Wow.
I found a way to, get a 3-day kind of free trip in Istanbul, through flying through Turkey, and get 3 hotel there. So I'm using that to, even when I'm traveling on work, I'm still finding ways to still do photography on my own. It's like, I love this so much. Like, no matter where I'm going to go, I'm going to do it, whether I'm working or playing or having fun. It's like, I love telling those stories and becoming part of my, lexicon of who I am. And we talk about, like when you talk about real film and leaving stuff behind, what's your mark, what you're leaving behind. Hopefully it's my photography and a little story that helps people.
Wow. I don't think I like, you go through ebbs and flows of like, creative inspiration and connection to the thing. I'm marveled at your ability to turn like this mindset on. It's something I'm working on, obviously. Like, I'm a little bit earlier in my career than you are. I'm like, it's almost one of those things where it's like, it's such an aspirational mindset. And again, it's like, I have to remind myself the appreciation that I have for finding this thing. And like, sometimes it does feel like a job, and those are the hard days. Because when something you love deeply, passionately feels like work, it's hard to like work against that. It's like, going against the cheese grater in the wrong direction. It's like, it's tough. It's hard to like,
I think, you bring up like, you had brought up COVID.
Yeah.
And right prior to going to COVID, I had stuff booked going all over the place. I had, flights and talks and stuff like that. And suddenly we didn't know like how long it was going to last. We went into the lockdown. Everything got canceled. Like, I'm like, I finally found what I love, and what if it's taken away?
Yeah.
And that moment to pivot, like, I'm not allowed to go out and shoot people. I'm not allowed, like, how do I find and communicate with people? I was, part of American Photographics and photographic artists, and like we would always have in-person events and talks and meetups and stuff like that. So I'm like, how do I now connect with members? How do I connect with, shooting and stuff like that? And for me, that was a moment where I'm like, I don't want to lose this all. How do I figure out ways to pivot and communicate? And that's where I started doing webinars and talks. And I was one of the first people helping with people in Zoom and figuring out how to do that. And I was doing these great talks and, and really developing my style. When I first started doing what you're doing, I was terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible.
I mean, same. I still suck, but yeah.
But no, I mean, it's like suddenly if we get there and we just have one conversations and really kind of love and ask those questions. And, my dad, it's like we always get these nuggets. And it's like, and I always ask, one of my questions to people is like, what's one thing your parents told you or someone told you that sticks with you always and you want to pass down, whether to your kids or friends, something like that. My dad was like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Speak more than less than you listen. So
same. I think
the opposite. Listen more than you speak.
Yeah, right.
And that kind of, it wasn't about not being vocal or not saying it, but for me, I really grew to like, I need to listen to people. And if I'm going to capture them and understand as an artist, I need to listen to you and what you're giving me, whether it's your look in your eyes, whether it's your honesty. And a lot of times as artists, we may only have 10 minutes to talk or 10 minutes to photograph someone, or you get that moment. How do we break barriers and add a comfort zone and get something and getting a true moment between us to capture? And a lot of times I will capture it when you least expect it. It's like we'll be sitting there like, that was the one. Mm-hmm. And it's not when you expect it.
It's always that small in-between breath of a moment, like beyond the pose. I totally agree.
There was one moment early on, I was not good with lighting at this point. I certainly wasn't a lighting ambassador or even thought I was good at it,
Yeah.
But now being a Harlowe light ambassador, it's like, now I'm like, I love layering light. But I was shooting Bill Clinton.
Wow.
And we were at the 21 Club in New York City, and literally the Secret Service comes in. You only have a couple moments with him. I'm nervous, even more nervous now than setting up the strobes. They not work. I'm not sure how to light someone. There was a moment where he stood against this old wooden panel door with shipping and industry, and the ships behind him framing perfectly, and he's just kind of looking off to the side. I just went, boom, took that shot. And then he came in, I did the quick shots and stuff like that. That was the shot that made it. That was the shot that was used. That's a shot that now people know me kind of for. And it was just, looking for those in-between moments. And I think that's the beauty in life is sometimes we look for those grand moments when it's the in-between moments that have the most gravity and emotion and tie us in. So I try and, as a person, not only in life, but, a lot of people tend to, as once you become a photographer, you stop looking at life and you're always looking through the lens. I try and do both. It's just difficult, but you have to.
It's funny. So I did start in my career doing a lot of street photography, and like thought I was wanted to be. First of all, beautiful. I love that. That was amazing. Sorry, no. ADHD. I just I for a long time started seeing everything in life through frame lines. I still think I do notice things like in how I would orientate a photograph. I don't know. Do you experience that? Like, because you spend so much time like looking through something. It's like
in my head, I have theme music going, cinematic stuff. I'm seeing like lights and fog and like how I layer it and like, the light coming through in tunnels and framing frames. Of course.
Yeah.
It's like that is the excitement of it all. It's like, how do I tell this story in a different way? And, it's like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's funny. I also think one of the great byproducts of it is like it's made me a more intentional viewer of things. So like the way in which like I've always loved movies. Like you said, I used to go to one movie at 10 a.m. and I would pick the two other ones. I did the same thing, me and my friends, all the time when we were kids. So like that never left me. My affinity for it never changed. But like now the way I view it is like so different, and my appreciation for how these things are shot, how they're laid out, what the pacings are, like all these things, like from a storytelling perspective, like my appreciation for film has gone through the roof, because like now I'm genuinely curious about choices that these guys make. I'm wondering why'd they shoot it this way? Why is the focal length long? Why is it short? Why is it, yeah.
But what you just brought up there is everything. Is because when I'm talking about, when I'm talking or giving lessons or, just lectures about photography, you just brought it all up. It's like taking a language for the first time. I'm not going to know how to say in Spanish, "Where's the bathroom?"
Yeah.
But it's suddenly when I learn more and more and more and learn more words and dialect, and not only can I say "Where's the bathroom," funny or sad or embellish upon it. That's what lenses in our craft is like, where a zoom lens compresses, and it's like we understand that this is a language, and the more we use it, the more we're able to tell stories in a different language and really use those tools to tell stuff. It's one thing to take an iPhone, but if you're not understanding what you're doing and that compression and zoom and light and the way bokeh or deep focus or non-focus, it's like you're not influencing the viewer. It's like you're just capturing something. Mm-hmm. So for us, we're making crucial decisions. And when I first started, it was like I just wanted to take a picture. I wanted to capture it, and people were like, "Well, why'd you take it?" Because it was there and I liked it. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly I went to school and ICP is like, then it was like you had to make a series, and like I didn't know how to make a series. Like, how do you repeat something and tell a story and really kind of do that? And that was probably the most difficult thing I ever did, was shoot a lot of stuff and make a series, make it cohesive and stuff like that. So suddenly I realized when we first start out, we have this 2 circles. The first circle is just free creativity. And that's what we love when we first start photography. But then if we start getting serious about it, we got the technical one. And suddenly we go, oh, if I change my shutter speed, that I can slow things, I can speed things. But if I change my shutter speed, then suddenly I have to change the light, the aperture. But the aperture, now if I want it in deep focus or not focus, and then there's ISO. What the hell's ISO? It's like, what? That was, it's like, oh, that's the light. That's still the light, but the light, I don't understand. Once you start learning that, and the 2 circles are totally out of whack. Your creativity is like, I don't know where this goes because I want to tell this story, and I want to. And then suddenly you learn your craft of the mechanics of the camera, and that gets in sync, so you can bring the other one back into sync and really start telling your stories.
Ooh, I like that.
You have to work through the mechanics of it so you can forget it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's funny. I don't know if it's this way for you, but it's like the way I relate to like all those like mechanical functions of the camera. Very mathematically. Like, I don't know if it's
So
just
not me.
oh really? Yeah.
Yeah, so not
So
me.
it's so funny to me. Like, so when you're talking about shutter speed in general, like if I want to put like motion blur into a photo, it's just math to me. So like I know if like I'm dialing down the shutter speed that I'm obviously going to have to stop down. So it's like compensating from a light perspective. It just seems like a math problem in my head. And it's funny how like I was just doing it the other day when I was shooting, and I nailed it on the first try when I wanted to do something specifically with motion blur. And I was like, oh fuck! I was like, it's just like math, and it just like stuck in my head. I was like, whoa!
I was
it like blew my
so
mind.
opposite than you.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like if you bring math into it, I'm like that. I'm like, oh wait, no, that doesn't work. It's like also I'm dyslexic, so
Same.
it's like, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
same.
Einstein, Da Vinci, Edison, Rockefeller, all we're in good company.
I didn't know that. Okay,
all of them.
nice.
So for me, it was like I remember one day it was like that triangle of the aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. Is like it never made sense to me. I'm like and one day it clicked. I'm like, oh, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And that was what suddenly changed everything for me, was kind of discovering that. But I still am not mathematical about it. I'm just like,
I think I just like maybe I was good at math as a kid.
people are, and that's just I just never was one of them. For me, it was like art and creativity and building things, and I was very hands-on and like stuff like that. But if I had to sit there and do math, no, I was terrible. Absolutely,
it happens quick, I promise. But so when you introduced yourself, you said you're a cinematic photographer, and you were just, I believe, completed your very first.
Yeah,
talk to me about.
So I mean, I grew up loving movies and stuff like that, and and a friend of mine who I've worked with before, a longtime friend, actor and writer-director. This is the first project. He wrote almost 20 years ago, and he's done other stuff since, but he was back in his home state in Michigan City, Indiana, and he's like, I think I want to make this movie. I want to make it here. I'm like, all right, let me start helping you with some stuff, and then the more and more I did it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to come on, and it's like, well, maybe you should help produce this, and so I came on as one of the producers on it, and it was a labor of love to go back into to film and cinema. I've always loved it. Even when I take photos, I think now it's like I realize I am taking cinema. I want it to look like something I pulled out of a scene of a movie. So to go back and do this was many years of trying it. And literally, we were 5 days away from shooting this film. You had the tickets for the cinematographer to come from LA to fly in, and all the hotels room booked. It was during the writers and the strike and SAG strike, and they kept telling us because we were under a certain amount of money, we would get a waiver. 5 days before, they go, you're not getting the waiver. And we were a low budget movie. We had already spent some money, and we just kind of collapsed in a week. Like we just didn't answer the phone for a week. We didn't talk to each other, and then we just like, all right, things happen for a reason. And not only did we were able to. The movie takes place in a small town. 2 guys owning a bar, and they play on their local pub dart team. And they get to somehow in this amazing kind of turn of events play for the world championship of darts. And it's very Ted Lasso meets Rocky, and it's community underdog love story. And we were able to move a major dart tournament to Michigan City. We were able to shoot some B films there. They left the sets there. So things happen for a reason. And what started out as low budget money looks like a multi-million-dollar movie because we were able to pull off and really kind of have the community help us and stuff like that. And that's sort of like I adopted. When I first started in photography, I looked at it was Benjamin von Wong stuff. And he would always do these incredible things of divers underwater and flames and this, that. So I'm like, oh my God, he must have a huge production team. But I got to work with him. And he's like, no, I travel. I'm pretty much a nomad. And I met this person and that person. And we just kind of pulled together and stuff I'm like, oh my God, you just need to pull other creatives together and build your community and you
Wing
can do amazing things together, and it's not going to cost you $1 million. You can do great art, you can do stuff, and hopefully you all lift each other up, by doing that and helping each other and building your own, community. But with the film, we were able to produce a movie that now it's going. We just finished. It's locked in the can, and we're going out to try and sell it right now. And we have a great broker that's going to bring it to a bunch of different stuff. And so it's like. First film, and it's a labor of love. I'll tell you. I think the closer you can get is like a woman saying oh, would you have a kid again? Right after oh no, I'm not going to go through it again. And then a year later no, I'm going to have another kid. Yeah, that's the way the film right now. I'm like, would I produce another movie? Oh no, but a year later I'll probably I'm already going to start working on it.
I'm curious, what do you think was the best thing that you learned through the process? The entire
how much I love working on photo sets. Because as a producer, literally, we were working 6 days a week. And as a producer, you're working that 7th day. And I'm like, geez, these are 12, 13-hour days where I go in photography. It's like, I used to bitch about a 4-hour shoot. Yeah. That's the easiest thing in the world. I come in, take some shots, go and edit. I'm like, I like being a photographer. Yeah. Film is hard work.
Yeah. Long days, long nights.
Yeah, and unforgiving.
Yeah. Did you do any behind-the-scenes photography while you?
I did. I always shoot the BTS on the film sets.
I've had the opportunity to do that on a couple different productions, and they were all independent stuff. And I realized my documentary style is something that I don't do enough of, but it's probably what I love most about photography, and the candid moments. It's those things behind the scenes where as a portrait photographer primarily and a fashion photographer, everything is very set up, focused, planned, that getting the opportunity to work in music, concerts and stuff like that, and behind the scenes on things, it's nice because I get to be sort of free reign creative, and it's just it's those candid moments are really nice.
How awesome is it when you're working on either shooting a concert or you're shooting on a film set? They've lit it for you. And you get to have fun. Yeah,
you don't have to worry about anything. Yeah, right. Someone else's job.
Everything's their hair and makeup, they're ready to go. It's
I'm curious. So as a producer for the film, did that experience stir anything inside of you to write, to direct, to?
Absolutely. I when I went to film school, and I went to NYU Film School prior to even thinking I was going to be a photographer. I thought I'd have an Oscar by 22 or something like that. I was convinced.
Yeah.
But I I don't know if I have it in me to want to be a full director. I do enjoy the producing part of it. I think I'm writing some stuff. Not to say that if I'm working on hopefully a TV show that one day get picked up, I would probably want to direct, maybe want to be a showrunner or something like that. But full-fledged director, not so much. I think maybe.
Do you find like one of the things that like I found since diving into this creative life is like the boxes that I feel I need to tick are no longer what other people like tell me I need to tick, which has been nice because I'm learning what I want to do. As you develop your career, having that cognition that you don't need to be a director, even though like you just worked on this movie. Do you find that? Yeah.
No, it's kind of liberating. It's like I don't need to do all this. It's like just to say I was a director is I don't need that. It's like we get so hung up on labels and that kind of stuff. It's like once we kind of free ourselves to just be who we are and enjoy what we love, it's like, no, I'm gonna go home and like, I used to love going out to nightclubs. I own nightclubs, and like now I'm like, I want to go there and leave.
Yeah.
I want to get there. I'm like, all right, no, sorry. I'm gonna go home and watch the last episode of Game of Thrones or something. Yes. Yeah.
I'm curious. So education obviously plays a big part of what you do from a career perspective. What do you think what is it about the education aspect of what you do that inspires you to impart your wisdom and knowledge to new photographers and new creatives?
Education, that's a good one, because it's like I did a lot of it through like school, but I don't know if that's the best way anymore. Look at the olden days and stuff where we used to be, trade craftsmen and go and apprentice and really work, next to someone. That can be something great. And we're in this age of renaissance right now where we've never had more tools at our disposal as storytellers. Where if you looked at a major film that, like, oh my God, they brought in a helicopter to do this aerial shot, and then they brought, tracks in to do a dolly shot. Then they have a huge steady camera operator and stuff like that. All that stuff now will fit in a backpack with a drone, a gimbal, and we can even edit it on the laptop, or an iPad. It's like, so the tools are there to tell better stories. We just have to focus on what our story is and authentically be who we are. Because sometimes we're chasing trends and this stuff and this other, and we never adopt like every one of us. Like you're sitting there and I'm sitting here, and we may go, all right, we're going to photograph that apple on the table. Your background, your story, your influence and pain in life and joy in life is going to influence the way you shoot that, and different than the way I shoot it. And that's where we have to really kind of say, I'm going to own who I am and my ability as a storyteller and work on my storytelling, and never say like, oh, I'm complete as an artist. No, I'm always each day trying to push myself and learn something new, to tell stories differently, to find a different angle, to connect in a different way. Hopefully that'll never stop. And I think, that's what makes us more powerful in this industry is realizing I got a long way to go, and I've been a long way, and I can't wait to see where I am. Like even stuff I did 5 years ago, I'm like, oof. And 6 months ago, it's like as we keep improving ourselves, you look and really kind of get to a point where we understand I'm just working on my craft every day and making myself stronger and better.
That's so important. Also, like I think in order to get better, you have to be able to grow. Yeah. And how do you grow? By learning where your weaknesses lie. So much of like normal work and 9-to-5 jobs, you don't really have that opportunity to grow. Like in a creative space, like if I want to accomplish the things I want to accomplish, I have to get better. How do you get better? By learning. How do you learn? By having other people critique your work, by like getting yourself into positions and places with people that can like, fairly evaluate what you've created, and like how do you like grow from that perspective?
I'm real, just like everyone. I will look at stuff on in museums or online and stuff like that. I'm like, damn, I'm never going to be that good.
Oh, I think that every day.
And it's like, just looking. I don't know if you ever got a chance. The exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum for David Bowie.
I haven't seen it. No,
it's not there anymore. But this guy was such an incredible creator. Like, and the wealth of stuff. Like, I will never have that much talent that he had in the film of my thumb. But to look at someone that was so incredible, whether it was creating costumes or personalities or songs or acting, it's like it drives me to each day want to better my craft. And I think, it's like we can't get hung up that, someone's better than us. We have to just get hung up like, how do I make myself better each day? That
is so important. I just read the book, The Midnight Library. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, so it's written by Matt Haig. The premise of the book is that the protagonist, she tries to kill herself in the beginning of the book, and she finds herself in the Midnight Library, which is like an infinite opportunity to tap into every life in every parallel universe that she ever lives. Like the idea that, from a physics perspective, that there are infinite numbers of John Picciutos and Travis Keys that exist in the entirety of the world. In one world, we're having this conversation. In another one, I'm a firefighter, a police officer. And in other worlds, I'm dead. So it's like really an interesting idea. And, TLDR, spoiler alert, the end of the book is her realizing that, there was nothing wrong with the root life that she was living. It was her perception of it, right?
Yeah.
Her ability to recognize the beauty in the mundane and the small things. I think a lot of us don't learn until we get older and things start getting taken away from us. And for me, what I want to do today is grow as an artist and grow as an interviewer and grow as a human being. And that's lost on 25-year-old John. But now I'm in a position where like, hey, kid, drinking your Celsius, fucking going to the bar, you have the opportunity to jump the shark, right? You get to learn a little bit earlier. And that's like what the biggest hope is, because what you said is so important. Like making yourself better as a person is going to make you better as an artist. And these are all things that you don't learn until you get older. It's like, I wish I would have known.
It's a lot of times I'll say, I know I'm never going to have all the right answers, but I hope I'm asking the right questions.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. So we're always striving for the meaning of life, our purpose and stuff like that. And we get hung up, I think, sometimes in the things that are not going to help us. Jealousy. I'm not, good enough. I'm not. It's like, and we have to start really kind of saying, what things do I enjoy in life, and what are the things that make me happy, and really kind of. Each morning, wake up and go, I have a chance today. And the more I kind of grow and ascend to a hopefully different enlightenment, it's really, I have to remind myself, there is only right now. It doesn't matter tomorrow. It doesn't matter yesterday. Everything is just right now. The only thing that's going to make a difference is what I do right this second. Not what I might do tomorrow or what I did yesterday. And I have to remind myself, it's like when I feel like I'm on the couch and I just don't want to go and it's an hour to drive in and meet those people. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Remind myself that 1 second can change your life.
Yeah.
And to remind yourself sometimes, no, just suck it up.
No, listen, I totally agree. The expression life is what happens when you're busy making other plans has always been very important to me. And like this idea that like one day I'm not going to be able to do these things. So I might as well try as hard as fuck to do them now, and fail as I might. It's worth the risk. It's worth the try. It's like, what else choice do you have?
And one of the greatest things I've heard is like the only thing that's stopping you from getting where you want to be is you not doing the work.
Yeah.
And I find that always like, well, no, why? It's not because, I didn't have the right gear. I didn't this. Like we always make excuses. It's like, no, I've seen people make amazing things on disposable cameras. I've seen people like stop and saying, if I only had that gear, I only had that,
I got stuck in that for sure early on. It's like,
I'm not gonna lie, man. I never knew cameras. I'm like, God, I have to have it.
I know. But this is part of the journey, right? You have to learn that, like, it's not. Listen, some tools are meant for some specific examples in situations. That's fine. We can advocate and discuss ad nauseum. At the end of the day, there's this old cliche that the right tool for you is the one that you have in your hand when you're in the moment. And if you're not there present with the able to have the mindset to create in that moment, it doesn't matter if you have a $50,000 camera.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
I think one of the main takeaways I think that's crucially important that you touched on today was this idea of community. And as you get older, the community that you surround yourself, I think, is probably the biggest cheat code that you can have. If you're surrounded by friends and family that lift you up, that build you up, and give you the opportunity to grow as a human being, you can be successful in everything you can do. I'm forever grateful for someone like Karan who introduced us and put us in this position, out of this conversation. Travis, I have a very cliche saying: if you've been on my podcast, you're part of my family. Thank you for being part of my community, and thank you for being on the podcast today.
Honored to be here. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing more of your stories and growing with you as a storyteller.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks.